The Devil's in the Claws, how the ego sells you immortality and hands you death instead. Walter Bedecker isn't sick, he's afraid. Not of germs, but of irrelevance. Not of illness, but of the void. And when fear masquerades as hypochondria, the ego's salesman always shows up with a solution. Enter Mr. Cadwallader, a smooth-talking symbol of the separated self who doesn't offer healing but a contract. Not freedom, but a workaround. Not love, but loopholes. I can handle a decent number of years. 200, 300. Why not 1,000? Bedecker's wish isn't for life. It's for time. And that's the first mistake, because the ego's definition of immortality is just an extension of form. 1,000 more years in a body. A body that can't be hurt. A body that never dies. A Course in Miracles calls this the confusion between form and content. What's immortal is not the body. What's eternal cannot ever be bargained. But Walter thinks he's found a loophole, a clause, the escape clause. The fine print says if he ever gets tired of living, he can request a rapid and uncomplicated departure. Sounds generous. But that's how the ego always hides its death wish, in the relief. Cadwallader isn't some pitchfork devil. He's projection, a symbol of the inner voice that says, you're the body, you're vulnerable. But I've got a solution. All ego bargains begin with guilt and end in death. The middle is just paperwork. You deed to me your so-called soul, and in exchange, I give you indestructibility. Complete indestructibility. Nothing can hurt you. Nothing can hurt you. That's not a gift. That's a trap. It means no contrast, no threat, no risk. And without risk, the ego gets bored. Because boredom is what the ego calls the stillness of heaven. Without fear, there's no excitement. Without pain, there's no contrast. So Walter's thrill-seeking begins. He fakes accidents, drinks poison, throws himself in front of trains. The body won't break. The check always clears. But the soul already signed away. Not because Cadwallader took it, but because Walter forgot he had it. The soul, in metaphysical terms, is just the self God created, and it can't be traded, but it can be denied. And once denied, all that's left is repetition. That's what boredom really is, a loop of meaninglessness. When there's no threat to cling to, the ego has no foothold. It demands danger. It thrives on thresholds. And when those disappear, it throws tantrums in the form of stunts, violence, or chaos. The ego isn't a lover of life. It's a junkie for adrenaline. And when even pain is out of reach, it starts craving death. Eventually, boredom curdles into desperation. He kills his wife, not out of malice, but curiosity. Now let's give the electric chair a little whirl, he says. But the court doesn't oblige. Instead of execution, he gets life imprisonment. And that's when the ego's real punchline hits. Immortality in prison. The thrill-seeker is now confined. Forever. And suddenly the escape clause, once laughed off as fine print, becomes the only thing that feels real. That's the ego's trick. It gives you the world and makes you want to leave it. But it only offers one door out. Death. Walter invokes the clause. Not because he's dying, but because he can't. Death becomes salvation. He drops dead of a heart attack, surrounded by guards and silence. That's what he called living. Running from boredom to chaos to confinement until death felt like mercy. But the real story here isn't about hellfire. It's about projection. The ego tells the mind that God is the jailer, that death is the final verdict, and that deals can be struck to delay the inevitable. It hides the truth of eternal life behind the illusion of prolonged existence. But one is changeless. The other only stretches the illusion. Serling signs off, beaten by the devil, by his own boredom, and by the scheme of things. But the real scheme wasn't cooked up in hell. It was birthed in the split mind. It said, "You are a body. You are separate. You will die. But maybe there's a way to cheat it." And that maybe is where the ego slips the contract across the table. What if Walter had questioned the voice that came offering solutions? What if he saw that the very desire for control was the problem? What if he realized that immortality, as the ego defines it, is just a longer prison sentence? What if the real escape clause wasn't death, but forgiveness? Forgiveness is the only thing that undoes the contract, because it reveals there was never a deal to begin with. The soul cannot be sold. Time cannot be extended. Only illusion can be prolonged. And only the ego believes prolonging the illusion is salvation. Walter skipped the healing. He skipped the miracle. And in doing so, he skipped life altogether. He chose more time instead of timelessness. He chose thrill instead of peace. He chose ego insurance policies instead of the freedom of love. He chased indestructibility in a body instead of resting in what was never destroyed. He picked the ego's version of forever and called it a win. But the truth, the real escape clause is this: nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God,